Hello and welcome. I'm Makayla, and this is To Be Known. So, today I'm going to be going on a little bit of a monologue, rant, conversation, talk, whatever you want to call it. You can probably tell from the title of today's episode, but I'm talking about empathy and being a highly sensitive person because that is what I am. The past 2 weeks, I've been talking about self-awareness in the podcast, and in turn, I have been practicing self-awareness. And I remembered, and sometimes I forget that I am someone who is a more sensitive person. I'm highly sensitive to the environment around me and the people around me. Some may call this being an empath. I personally like calling it being a highly sensitive person because just from what I've seen on the media, here comes Luna. Just from what I've seen on the media in regards to being an empath, there's sort of two sides to the spectrum. And, there's obviously the in between, but I feel like on one end of this being an empath spectrum is you feel other people's feelings, you can sense other people's feelings, and it's something that you use as a superpower of sorts. And then on the other end of the spectrum, being an empath is sort of weaponized, where there's people who say that they're an empath and they use it as like a tool for like basically like putting themselves above other people. And I don't stand for that. I don't think anyone is above anyone. And they use this empath label as basically a reason why they are better than someone else, or use it as a way to victimize themselves. And I do not believe that that is truly being an empath. So I like to call myself a highly sensitive person because I lean more towards this side where I think that my empathy skills, I just think I'm a very empathetic, highly sensitive person. Like, if I'm going to be completely honest, I think that I am on this side of the spectrum, the side where I use my skills as a superpower, or my ability as a superpower, where, I use it for good. I don't use it to put myself above someone else or victimize myself in a scenario, because I do not think that that is real empathy. That's my hot take. If you are someone who claims that you are an empath and you are acting in a sort of narcissistic way where you are saying that you're better than other people, or you're victimizing yourself because of your empathetic ways, air quotes, I don't like you. Sorry, but that's the truth. And that's the two ends of the spectrum of being an empath that I think are out there on the internet. And everyone, maybe people line themselves somewhere in between. With that being said, you might be like, okay, Makayla, why are we talking about being an empath or being a highly sensitive person? Why today? I'm basically having this conversation because I know who I am. I know how I am. And I feel like there's definitely an audience out there that's probably similar to me. And if you don't relate, then yay, because there's positives and negatives to being someone who is a highly sensitive person, to someone who can really sense and feel other people's emotions. And before getting into today, I just want to, I guess I already got in, but I just want to define what empathy is first and foremost. Empathy is basically the ability to sense other people's emotions and also feel other people's emotions and what they're feeling. While I was preparing for this episode today, I, just wanted to refresh my brain on empathy and, being an empath and just sort of the things that are out there in the world. And I saw this article by Greater Good from the University of California, Berkeley, UC Berkeley. And I really like what they said on their website. So I'm going to read it to you because empathy, it's a two-part thing. And they say, and I'm quoting them right now, contemporary researchers often differentiate between two types of empathy. There's affective empathy, refers to the sensations and feelings we get in response to others' emotions. This can include mirroring what that person is feeling or just feeling stressed when we detect another's fear or anxiety. Cognitive empathy, sometimes called perspective taking, refers to our ability to identify and understand other people's emotions. So there's two parts to empathy, ending the quote from UC Berkeley. There's affective empathy. We're feeling what someone else is feeling in response to them. And then there's cognitive empathy, perspective taking, where we're literally able to put ourselves into someone else's shoes and identify and understand their emotions. And I am someone where my empathy in these two types is extremely strong. It's extremely strong, and that's just who I am. But being an empathetic person, having empathy, again, for some people it's innate. That's me. And for other people, it's a little bit more of a skill that they might need to practice. It's not innate. It's not strong in everyone, and you don't need to feel guilt if your empathy levels aren't as high as someone else's. If you want to learn how to gain more empathy, you can. But today, I'm just going to be talking about being a highly empathetic and highly sensitive person and just sort of the positives and pitfalls of this lifestyle, because it's a lifestyle that I did not choose, but rather just occurred over the span of my life. Anyways, yes, empathy. It's a great thing. I love it. There's so many positives, but there's also some negatives. And I'm just going to talk about them today because maybe one of you out there in the world can relate to me. Okay, first things first, empathy is just great to have in general. And I just want to note that before getting into sort of me talking about the good and the bad of being a highly sensitive person. And being a highly sensitive person, I'm doing air quotes if you can't see me, is something, it's been coined on the internet. I'm not taking it, but it's just someone who is really able to sense and feel other people's emotions, just like being an empath, just like empathy. They're all the same thing, just, two sides of the same coin. Being a highly sensitive person, it does have its positives, and I want to start that off with listing all of the positives of being a highly sensitive person because, as I said earlier, my empathy, my sensitivity to others, I do think that it's a superpower. And I just want to share some of the ways that I think is a superpower because empathy is a great thing to have. I mean, being an empathetic person, being a more sensitive person, I am really able to connect with others. I feel like when you are a more empathetic, sensitive person, you understand the things that people say in a much deeper way. And I feel like that allows me to emotionally connect with people very easily. And that's something that I can't say is a negative because that's a positive. I feel like I'm really able to connect with others and see them and hear them and feel for them. And that's what people want to feel like. They want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, they want to feel emotionally connected with others. And for that, I'm saying it's a superpower. The next thing about, being a more highly sensitive person is that I feel like it allows me to be a good listener. Because when someone's telling a story, when people are sharing something with me, I really am able to step out of my body and go into their body and take their exact perspective and I literally feel in my body the emotions that they're probably feeling, because I literally chart who that person is, and I step into their skin and I step into their perspective, and I'm really engaged and I'm really listening to what they're saying, because I want to understand exactly what it is that they're saying and exactly what it is that they're feeling, so that I can go and support them in a way that is best for them. And, this is something that's really strong in me. I feel like when someone's telling a story, I'm feeling the ups and downs of all of the emotions that they might be feeling, and it's fun until it's not. But yeah, I just feel like that's something that I think is really cool about being a person who is empathetic. The next thing is caring about others. I feel like being a more sensitive person who feels other people's feelings very strongly and senses things in people, it really makes me care about others. Because if I could feel for them, if I could sense these things in them, then of course I'm going to care. If I feel all these things and I notice these things in people, why would I just turn off my caring? I'm not going to not care. It is a superpower of being someone who's a little bit more sensitive. The next thing is being able to effectively communicate about emotions. I feel like because I feel emotions so strongly and I'm able to take on perspectives so easily, it allows me to have this really fluid sort of conversation within the topic of emotions and harder things. I feel like for me, sometimes it's easier for me to talk about deeper things than it is for me to have more surface level conversations. And that's just kind of where I'm at in life. It's easier for me to get into the nitty and gritty of life and feelings rather than talking about stupid stuff like what nail polish color is my favorite. I don't know. That's just who I am, and I'm not being a pick-me for it. I'm just being honest, I guess. These are all great positives of being someone who has strong empathy, someone who is a highly sensitive person. I feel like I just need to note some things before I move on. Being a highly sensitive person, being someone who sort of doesn't know the bounds, or not doesn't know the bounds, but the bounds between me and other people can be so unclear sometimes. And I sometimes struggle with this idea of, okay, are the emotions that I'm feeling my own, or are they someone else's? Is it the person who I'm in the room with? Is it my friend's emotion that I'm feeling, my parents' emotion that I'm feeling, my boyfriend's emotion that I'm feeling? Sometimes I don't know if the emotion that I'm feeling is my own. Sometimes I lose myself in knowing if the stress that I'm feeling is my own or someone else's. There's things about being a more sensitive person that can make things really hard. I feel like I only just became proud of being someone who felt deeply and was a more sensitive person in the past couple of years, because back when I was younger, I had a lot of anxiety when I was a kid. I'd suffered from panic attacks, and I would run out of class and go into the bathroom and have to calm myself down, or just would straight up just not be okay, like in class. And I wouldn't understand why it was happening. It was scary and isolating, and I got made fun of for it. And I really shoved it down, this sensitivity, empathy that I had. And I really didn't think that it was a good thing. I shamed myself for being this way. And it makes me sad for little me, because now I see it as a superpower. And there's tough stuff about being a more sensitive person. It's true. Like, as I said earlier, sometimes I don't know if the things that I feel are my own or if they're someone else's, because the lines between me and other people can be very blurry. And it's something that I've had to teach myself, this idea of boundaries. Boundaries are hard. Some people are excellent at boundaries, and I love you for them. Like, if you are someone who has great boundaries, congratulations. I wish I learned sooner. But being a more sensitive person, I have tended to put other people's emotions before my own, because I felt their emotions and I ignored my own emotions. Because if I felt other people's emotions and I knew that they were sad or anxious or stressed or mad, I didn't know how I was supposed to feel in response to that. And I would do everything in my power to help them with their emotions. And I think that that is a pitfall of being a more sensitive person, of being someone who is very empathetic. And I'm going to get into some of the downfalls of being a sensitive person. Maybe you can relate, and if you don't relate, or you're not this type of person, then maybe you learn something more about me, or maybe these things will allow you to view someone in your life who's a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more empathetic, just with kinder eyes. So yeah, first things first with being a more sensitive person is just feeling drained a lot. If I have a day where I could wake up in the morning, happy, I'm feeling great, and I go and I'm in the world, and everyone else was just off. It leaves me feeling so drained if other people's emotions are down. It's really hard for me to differentiate if I'm in a mood or if someone else is in a mood. And if someone else is in a mood, how do I respond? How do I act? It's something that I've had to learn, honestly. And I could just get so drained so easily. And this is another part of being a people person. I love being around people. I love being around my loved ones. You might hear my cat Astro meowing. I love being around my loved ones, but my energy gets drained so quickly because of this sort of hypervigilance. Not hypervigilance, but like sensing how they're feeling, sensing how the vibes are, sort of taking on emotions, not taking on, but just feeling them. It could be really draining sometimes. Another thing that I think is a pitfall, and I've touched on this, not like outwardly, but subliminally, is issues with boundaries and just not being able to separate self from others, especially in this emotional aspect. It's really easy to forget where the bounds between you and someone else are and what healthy boundaries look like. Because when you feel other people's emotions so deeply and fully, and you're able to take other people's perspectives so easily and fully, it just makes things really blurry. And it's really easy to forget that you are yourself and other people are themselves, and that you two are two separate things. It's really, really, really easy to forget about boundaries or not even realize that it's okay to feel your own feelings and for someone else to feel their own feelings, and that you don't have to do anything about it. And I don't know, like it's a very interesting part about being a more sensitive person, is this not really knowing where I end and someone else begins, emotionally speaking. With that being said, you could also experience burnout when there are no boundaries going on. All it takes is one relationship in your life where there are no boundaries for you to experience burnout. And this is something that has happened to me before. I've experienced burned out when I don't have boundaries. And there are days where I am stronger and I do feel my boundaries more and I am okay. But in the past, it's really led to me feeling this burnout and self-isolating when I have not had boundaries. Because they're so important at containing your energy and prospering your own energy, because you got to make sure when you're a highly sensitive person, when you are a more empathetic person, that you aren't giving all of your energy to everyone else, because it is so easy to do that. It is so easy to do it. And it's tough. It's tough not wanting to give everyone everything that you have. Not everyone feels that way, but if you get it, you get it. The next thing is just stress and anxiety in general. I feel like I'm someone where I am a more sensitive person. I'm more empathetic, and I'm someone who I also have a lot of anxiety. And I've had levels of anxiety throughout my life. This is Astro. This is his first time on screen. But I go through anxiety phases or highly stressed phases, and I take on a lot of people's stress and anxiety as if it is my own. And it's not true, but when you are someone who doesn't have these sort of boundaries, you don't know whose emotions you're feeling, it's really easy to take on other people's stress and anxiety as well. With that being said, moving on to the next thing is this idea of codependency. Codependency sounds scary. It is a scary, scary word, but it doesn't have to be. I realize that I have a tendency to become codependent with people, where I take on their emotional burdens and their emotions and all of these things, and I try to do everything in my power to help and fix and solve for people. And that is codependency. It can be very addictive, this codependency feedback loop. And if you are someone who has issues with boundaries and feeling other people's feelings and being a little bit more of a people pleaser, being someone who, you're just a little bit more sensitive, look into codependency. And I'm probably going to do an episode on it in the future. I am going to do an episode on it in the future, but look into it and do your own research. And there's some great books out there, great podcasts that talk about this, but codependency is something that you can beat, especially being a more highly sensitive person, a more empathetic person. The likelihood of you becoming codependent with people in your life is very likely. So protect yourself. It's okay to. You're allowed to. With that being said, taking on other people's problems. When you are a more empathetic, more sensitive person, it is so easy to take on other people's problems and want to solve everything because you know how they're feeling. You could be in their shoes and you can imagine how it is. And of course you would want things to change for them. So of course you're going to help them with their problems. But this isn't good. That's not good. It's good to an extent. You still have to live your own life and you have your own problems in life. You can't go around fixing everyone else's problems. Yes. Going along with this idea of codependency, taking on other people's emotions and also getting too emotionally invested in other people. This is something that I feel like is very, very, very likely and common for you to experience and feel if you are someone who is highly sensitive to those around you. You can really become emotionally invested in the lives that are around you. And it's okay for you to take a step back emotionally. It is okay for you to not take on other people's feelings and not be responsible for them. It's not your responsibility. Your only responsibility in life, my friends, is your own emotions and your own things. No one else's. I promise you. But it's really easy to lose yourself. It's so easy to lose yourself and other people when you are more prone to feeling other people's feelings and taking on other people's perspectives when you're a more empathetic, highly sensitive person. The last thing that I'm going to share with you today is difficulty managing your own emotions. Sometimes I feel like I've caught myself where it's hard for me to handle my own emotions sometimes because if someone who I am with, and I'm just going to use my boyfriend as my example, I love you, but if I am emotionally feeling one way, I'm emotionally down, and my boyfriend is up or he's also down, I have a hard time managing my emotions because I don't know what to do because I don't want to ruin his day because I'm expecting him to take on my perspective, to take on my issues, to take on my emotions. And it causes me to fester them inside and sometimes react in ways that I really don't want to because I have a difficulty managing my emotions from time to time. And this is simply because I don't know if I'm allowed to feel the way that I do because of someone else's emotions. Like if I'm feeling frustrated and I catch someone else is also frustrated, I put their frustration above my own frustration. Maybe this has to do with something about boundaries that I need to learn a little bit more, but their frustration makes me frustrated, which then leads me to suppressing my frustration more because I want to put attention to their frustration so that the problem could be resolved. But then I'm still left frustrated because I just want everyone else to feel okay because I could understand and I could feel for them. But then I'm kind of left like, oh shit, I'm not really taking care of myself emotionally. And it's easy for me to just not handle my emotions in the best way because I feel so much. I just feel a lot. And that's the thing about being a kid that was more of like a crybaby kid. Not crybaby kid. I wasn't like that all the time, but I definitely had my moments where if things were going on in my life when I was a kid, like I didn't know how to handle them and my emotions were so big and I just felt so much that I didn't know what to do. Emotions, they're just so interesting. And I don't know, I know that this is something that's so specific and it's not everyone's experience, but being a highly sensitive person, I think, is so devalued in our society because, you know, if you feel too much, then something's wrong with you. If you don't feel enough, then there's something wrong with you. You have to have just the right amount of emotions. You have to have just the right amount of boundaries. It's a really hard balance, especially when you are someone who is more empathetic, is more sensitive to other people. What are you supposed to do? I don't know. That's just how I feel about all of these things. And hopefully, if you are someone who is more sensitive, maybe you're able to relate to me. And if you didn't, then you learned something about me today. And maybe you know someone who you could see these traits in them. Maybe this allowed you to understand a little bit more about those people in your life. Emotions, we're going to feel them every single day. We're going to see the people who we love feel emotions. And having healthy boundaries is so important no matter how sensitive, how empathetic you are. It doesn't matter. Boundaries are so important. And I just wanted to talk about this today because I just reminded myself that I'm a sensitive person. I'm just a sensitive girl, and that's okay. And I feel for other people. I feel for other people a lot. And that's okay. And I think that it's a superpower at the end of the day because, yeah, I get to connect with people very deeply and wholly, and I understand people's pain, and I'm able to take on the stories that they tell me and really feel for people and connect with people. And I love that about being a more empathetic, sensitive person. But it's not always rainbows and butterflies. And today, I just wanted to share that. And that's honestly it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed today. And if you didn't, then I hope that you enjoy one of my past episodes, and maybe you'll enjoy the one that I post next week. But yeah, I felt cute today, so I wore my new shirt. I went to the mall because me and my boyfriend are going on a trip with his family in a few days. I'll be on the trip when this is posted. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed. With that being said, follow me at Instagram at tobeknown.co. Follow me on TikTok at tobeknownco, starting that up. Subscribe to my YouTube, also To Be Known Co. Like this video. Listen on Spotify. I quit Apple Podcasts because it's been weird to upload. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Stay true to you. Bye. Astro's on my lap. I'm going to lift him up. Astro, what do we say?